Mr. Ang Hin Kee.
Sir, may I take questions 2 and 3 together, please?
Please do.
The Kuala Lumpur-Singapore High-Speed Rail, or HSR, bilateral agreement commits the government of Malaysia and the government of Singapore to build the HSR project and to start the express service linking both cities by the end of 2026. Since the bilateral agreement was signed in December 2016, both governments have expended significant resources to implement the project according to the prescribed timeline. As I explained in this House on July the 9th this year, Singapore, on its part, had already spent more than Singapore $250 million by the end of May 2018 in implementing the project. These are costs for consultancies to design the civil infrastructure, costs for manpower to oversee and deliver the project, and costs for land acquisition. I added that Singapore will continue to incur costs more than Singapore $6 million in June, another more than 6 million Singapore dollars in July, and at least 40 Singapore million dollars from August to the end of this year. We expected Malaysia to also fulfill its bilateral agreement obligations, as the BA is a legally binding treaty between two countries. However, on August 11 this year, the new Malaysian government, through its Minister of Economic Affairs, Muhammad Azmin bin Ali, made an official request to Singapore to defer the HSR project by 3 or 4 years. Malaysia acknowledged that it would require Singapore's consent for such a deferment. The HSR is a major long-term bilateral project. It requires close cooperation between both governments to succeed. The BA makes no provision for project deferment. When either party is unable or unwilling to continue with the project, it can terminate the project, compensate the other party for costs incurred in accordance with the terms of the bilateral agreement. Minister Azmin Ali explained that Malaysia did not want to terminate the project, but needed to suspend construction for a specified period, with the intention to resume the project thereafter. He sought Singapore's understanding for Malaysia's predicament. He asked us to give the Malaysian request serious consideration, which we did. We could have turned down the request to defer the project, enforced our legal rights on termination, and sought compensation from Malaysia. This would have been fully in accordance with the bilateral agreement. After that, and if and when Malaysia was again ready to pursue such a project, we could discuss a new bilateral agreement for it. However, in the spirit of bilateral cooperation, we decided to work out an alternative resolution to the problem, especially since Malaysia reassured us that it did want to resume the HSR project, albeit after a delay. After several rounds of discussions, both sides reached agreement to suspend the construction of the HSR project up to 31st of May 2020. This will be 2 years from the formation of the new Malaysian government. Beyond 2 years, the current cost estimates would likely be no longer valid, which would affect the viability of the project and its business case. A longer suspension period would also impact our development plans for the Jurong Lake District, which will host the Singapore HSR terminus and many transport, commercial, residential, and recreational developments. As it is, with the 2-year suspension, the projected commencement date for the HSR Express service will be pushed back by 4 years to 1st of January 2031, as both countries will need additional time to call fresh tenders if and when the project resumes. Project suspension is not without costs to Singapore. we have to pay contract breakage costs to contractors for terminating ongoing contracts and to safely wind down operations for the duration of the suspension period. For example, ongoing excavation works cannot simply be abandoned. They need to be safely wound down. The excavation must be backfilled to render the site safe and re-excavated once the project resumes, increasing costs. These are abortive costs, which cannot be used for the HSR project after it resumes. They are separate from the project implementation costs, which we have already incurred for work done, which will still be useful if and when the project resumes. Malaysia has agreed to reimburse Singapore for the abortive costs of Singapore $15 million to be paid by end of January 2019. After the ongoing works have been wound down, no new HSR works will be undertaken during the period of suspension. Malaysia also requested that during the suspension period, both sides discuss the way forward for the HSR project with the aim of reducing costs. Singapore is open to such discussions. We are not obliged to accept automatically any proposals offered, but we will assess any proposals from Malaysia carefully and objectively. By May 31, 2020, we expect Malaysia to resume constructing the HSR project, either as specified in the HSR bilateral agreement or as amended if there is mutual agreement to do so. There will be no further suspension beyond May 31, 2020. If Malaysia does not proceed with the HSR project by then, the project will be deemed to have been terminated by Malaysia, which will reimburse Singapore for the project implementation costs incurred by us up to the point of suspension. These were the terms of the legally binding documents which Minister Azmin Ali and I signed on September the 5th, 2018 in Putrajaya. This is a fair arrangement for both countries. It protects Singapore's interests while reasonably accommodating Malaysia's request. It also shows that we can manage our bilateral ties on the basis of mutual respect and resolve issues amicably in accordance with binding agreements and international law. Singapore looks forward to continue working with Malaysia to see through the HSR project. Both sides recognize the mutual benefits of the HSR project, which will bring both countries closer together by improving connectivity, deepening people-to-people ties, and catalyzing further economic cooperation. Meanwhile, the suspension affects many stakeholders. SG HSR, Singapore's infrastructure company, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of LTA, has hired many staff who have worked hard on the project. During the suspension period, they will be offered alternative job roles in LTA. I thank them for their good work and dedication to this project. I'm confident that they will continue to contribute in the LTA family and to the HSR project if and when it resumes. The two HSR infracos, SG HSR Private Limited and My HSR Corporation, have jointly notified registered bidders for the SSCO tender that the SSCO tender has been aborted as of September the 5th, 2018. SG HSR and LTA have also informed all their contractors of the project suspension and are engaging them to discuss further details.
The high-speed question from Ms. Fumia.
Thank you, Speaker. As the Minister has said, the substantial resources were deployed for the HSR project. So with the suspension, I actually had asked the Minister in question 55 whether with that suspension, the LTA resources can be redeployed for the Jurong region line so that we can expedite the project of Jurong Region Line. Thank you.
For me to reply to this question, which is ordered further down the order of the Parliament. I could.
Why don't we come to that turn later? Zhang Hinki?
Minister, I'd like to follow up a question about the staff that were deployed, the HSR staff that were deployed to alternative roles in LTA. I was wondering if the ministry will consider deploying them perhaps in other countries that may agree to the arrangement whereby there are HSR equivalent projects that are ongoing, so that the staff will be kept abreast to development of the same nature, dealing with high speed, dealing with tunneling works, so that they are abreast with the latest technology, which must certainly improve over the next 1 or 2 years' time.
So Ms. Fumiha may disagree, and especially within LTA, within Singapore, we indeed have many MRT-related projects, and the skill sets which are being exploited and applied for the MRT projects, are totally applicable for HSR as well. So that is not our intent. Within suspension period of 2 years, we have enough work to keep them fully occupied, and we will do so. So if you agree, I can take Ms. Fumiha's question now.
If you wish, Minister.
The Jurong Region Line will be our 7th MRT line after the Thomson East Coast Line. It's scheduled to open in 3 stages between 2026 and 2028. It will cover 24 kilometers with 24 stations, of which 5 are interchange stations. Its planning and design works have commenced since March 2014. This is a complex project, and its 10-year project implementation timeline has been carefully adopted to ensure the safety and quality of construction. LTA is adequately resourced to meet this challenging timeline. First, the JRL will run along existing road corridors where there are many underground utilities and services, such as high-voltage cables and large-diameter water pipes. All these need to be carefully diverted before JRL construction can commence. Second, the JRL main construction works are complex. For example, the JRL will interchange with existing MRT lines at Jurong East, Choa Chu Kang, and Boon Lay. The new JRL stations will have to be built to safely and seamlessly interface with these existing stations, which are running live operations with heavy commuter loads. In particular, works at Jurong East Station will involve removal of the existing steel roof structure and the construction of a new roof above live tracks and operating platforms. Third, some parts of JRL have tight construction corridors. Extra care needs to be taken for works in these constrained areas so as not to damage or disrupt existing buildings and structures. There needs to be close coordination with surrounding land and building owners. All these require time. In short, safety in construction is our top priority. LTA does not recommend further shortening the construction timeline, even if additional resources are available. But we will try.
Mr. Dennis Tan?
Thank the Minister for his answer. I just want to ask the Minister whether you have any answer for the third part of my question, specifically whether there are any ancillary works or projects relating to or incidental to the HSR which will still continue in these 2 years. Thank you.
I thought I did. That was in my answer, that once during suspension period, once the activities we need to be wound down are done, there will be no more HSR-related works to be done during the suspension period.
Sekandian Poh?
Minister, may I know as a date of the suspension whether their bid received for the tender, which has been suspended? Right. Sorry. So on the upon the termination, right, a few months ago. So there were any bid that has been received for the open tender for the asset owning, and whether have you all gone through all those who had tender, probably the contract sum offer is well within the budget, right? Both sides can consider. Thanks.
So there was a strong interest in the joint assets co tender, but the assets co tender has not closed. At that time, has not closed yet. We postponed the closing date to end of this year. But now that the project construction has been suspended, on the same day we have informed all the bidders that the tender has been aborted. You know. But your question was, what were the bids that we have? No, because the tender was not closed yet. The tender closing date was end of this year.